Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Tara Baklund here with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. I'm here again with Rita Hogan, Canine Herbalist. And don't be fooled, she knows a lot about herbs for humans as well. And so you'll learn about both today. I am really curious to learn about, well, she mentioned in our last podcast, is a part of the series of becoming an herbalist. I interviewed her for that series because there's so many ways you can be an herbalist these days. And she mentioned phytoembryonic therapy. And I'm like, ooh, I want to learn more about that. There's so many ways to use herbs, not just, there's fresh, there's dried, and tea and tincture, and I mean, so many ways. And phytoembryonic therapy, I had not heard about that until you mentioned that. So I'm so glad you're back and you're raring to go and ready to share with us about what it is. Thanks.
Absolutely. Super excited about it. It's a fascinating subject that I got into in about, I would say, through 2012. I learned about phytoembryonics, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is fun. This is great. I want to give it a try. I want to see, how it is. And one of the things that brought me to this area of herbalism is the sustainability of it. So with phytoembryonics, you can allow the plant to finish its cycle. You're only taking a few like young tissues. It's made out of young tissues, embryonic barks, uh, buds of flowers, buds of leaves, and germinating seeds, and then rootlets. So the little tiny itsy bitsy hairs on the root, which they can actually extract from one side and put the root back where it is. So, which is just fascinating to me. So it's sustainable, and I'm definitely, I'm definitely a tree hugger. So I try to work from a sustainable mindset in everything that I do. So I was just really drawn to this part of herbal medicine, and as it is unfolded, I was just so surprised about what it had to offer, and especially at the level of organ health. So basically, phytoembryonic therapy is also known in some circles as gemotherapy. And I'll go through the difference. I call it phytoembryonic because I'm using mother tinctures a lot, but that it's also a homeopathic, like 1 to 200 dilution. I think it's called a D1 dilution in homeopathy, of a lot of the remedies, but not all. And so I try to differentiate between gemotherapy, which is homeopathic, and using the mother tinctures, which I would call is phytoembryonic therapy. And those are a 1 to 10 to 1 to 20 dilution for the most part when you find them in commerce. And when
So
I like,
gymnotherapy, is that the GY? Can you spell that for us?
oh, GEMMO
Oh,
therapy.
and
And
what does GMO stand for? What's the root?
it is well, what the reason why it's called gemotherapy is because one of the people that discovered it under the microscope, that the plant stem cells look like little tiny gems.
Oh,
So I can't remember what gemma means in let's see. I
I'm
don't know
looking
what
at.
gemma means. What's it?
Yeah, I mean, well, gemma, of course, is jewel. So let's see. I put gemo. I'll
I
look
have
that
it in
up.
I have it in my course what it means, but I can't remember. But it's been a long time since I wrote the beginning of that course, breaking down all the language. But yeah, they look like little gems under the microscope, but it has nothing to do with gems. Um, so I call it phytoembryonic therapy because
Mhm.
that's what we're using. We're using the embryonic constituents of plants, and again, it's buds, young shoots, embryonic barks, germinating seeds, which is kind of fascinating, and rootlets. So uh, they're wild crafted, and like I said, they're collected in a kind of a process that keeps the plant alive and able to reproduce. And that's what I love about it. I like the sustainability of it. So one of the things that uh, the stem cells do, and I'll go through like the constituents and things like that that make them stem cells, that make them phytoembryonics, but they clean at a cellular level, and it really helps with cleaning the extracellular matrix. Um, they help repair tissues, they help with cellular regeneration, and a lot of them carry their own light. So they increase cellular voltage, which
Mm.
as a species, humans have such a decrease in cellular voltage because of the way we live. You know,
Mhm.
we lack light. We're light beings. We emit light, and we lack it. We're not getting as much light and contact with the earth as we would a long time ago.
Mhm.
So, and shoes are a big thing in that too. And
Mhm.
we definitely all love our shoes. So, phytoembryonics really open up uh, de- like detoxification pathways, and the skin, the liver, the gastrointestinal tract, digestive system, lungs, kidneys, and mature plants do as well, but phytoembryonics really excel at it. It's one of the things that they're really good at. And so the extraction, um, to make a phytoembryonic, and I think I talked to you about that, I made a phytoembryonic out of clematis,
Mhm.
the buds of the flowers when they're tiny. And uh, it just turned out wonderfully. But what you use is you use water, glycerin, and alcohol. So, and depending on who's making it, different kind of levels of alcohol and water. But the glycerin is what helps extract the stem cells, and it also helps extract like vitamins and acids, essential oils, polyphenols, flavonoids, things like that. So it's a mixture of water, glycerin, and alcohol. But like how it got started, just briefly, really briefly, is there was a homeopath named Paul Henry, Dr. Paul Henry, uh, started gemotherapy as a homeopathic remedy. And then another person came along and started uh, like evolving his work, which was Dr. Max Tiatu. And together, and that wasn't too long ago. Like Paul Henry, I think, was in the late 40s, and Max Tiatu, who I think just recently passed away, started in the 70s. So they did a lot of research on gemotherapy, and they decided that it was best to dilute it. Now, other people have worked with the mother tinctures, which I work with. I also work with the homeopathic dilution, especially with cats. But I really gravitate toward the mother tinctures. So there's a couple, I don't know if you know, she's a registered herbalist, Robin D. Pasquale, I think. I'm not sure if I'm butchering her last name. She works with gemotherapy. I heard about it from Stephen Blake, who's a vet. He wrote a book called Gemotherapy for Our Animals, I think it was called. That came out in 2011. I stumbled upon it in about that late 2012, and I was so fascinated. And and then I started following, like, there's a homeopath named Lauren Hubley. She has her own, like, line of homeopathic embryonics, the gemotherapies. And then there's Dr. Joe Rosenwag in New Zealand. And then Dominic Richard is a phytochemist who did a ton of work over a long period of time on these remedies, researching their constituents, what they're good at, how to work with them, what the cautions are, and things like that. And then, so now, fast forward, I work with a woman named Jennifer Payeur, who owns a company called Nature Provides. Um, where you can get the mother tinctures in the United States. They come from Italy. They come from a biochemist named Dr. Joseph Canillo, who is a really interesting man. He's a biochemist, he's a chiropractor, but he's also a medical herbalist. He's an alchemist, and he is an astro herbalist. Um, like just a fascinating guy, and walking brain. He's a Gemini. He's just a walking brain, and like Matt's Matt's a Gemini. Can't stop thinking and doing and just providing us with just all this great information about our plant life. So he he does a lot of research on these therapies, and he recently discovered that the water, he makes them spagirically. Not all of them are made spagirically, but his are made spagirically. And he discovered that the water, um, that that he's extracting with, um, is giving off its own photons and creating these thing called like nanobubbles of photonic light. And they actually don't disappear when you ingest them. It takes them a while in the body to, like, basically explode, and then, they release their photons inside the body while you're ingesting them, which, um, I think he just discovered in, like, the last 3 or 4 months, which I think is fascinating. Anything that emits light and is really high in photons, is beneficial for our bodies, like plants, right? Plants emit light, and so, um, I find that really interesting. So, the like, stem cells in general, what they have is they have, enzymes, lots of minerals and vitamins and minerals at quite high levels. So, a lot of the remedies have complete profiles of amino acids, both non-essential and essential. Um, they have, lots of trace minerals. So, when you're using them, it brings down supplementation. Um, they have the genetic material, lots of RNA and lots of DNA and RNA, more RNA than DNA. They have lots of growth factors, alkaloids, essential oils, glucosides, polyphenols, and very, very high in antioxidants. Um, and some of the remedies have tannins. So, phytohormones are a big deal with them. Some of the remedies, like there's one, uh, Vaccinium, idea, which is, I think, cowberry, common cowberry, or wineberry, is estrogenic, along with, like, there's a remedy made from crabapple. It's also estrogenic, um, and it really helps at, like, cowberry I use with women that are having a problem with menopause, um, along with a couple of, like, there's a phytoembryonic of raspberry. It's the young shoots, um, and cowberry and raspberry together do really well. Um, so those have a lot of phytohormones in them. And but then there's remedies like Oriental Plain that when my body had cancer, I had ovarian cancer. I used it as it's a really powerful aromatase inhibitor. And I used it in lieu of the drugs I was offered. I didn't do chemo or radiation, I just had surgery, but, I was offered, preventative estrogen blocking, drugs, which I did not take. I took Oriental Plain for 3 years, at a pretty high level, and, it helped immensely. In fact, the interesting thing is that my I recently had a test of my hormone levels, and they're normal. Uh, and of course, I'm, medical menopause, but I'm at the age where you could have normal menopause, and my hormones are pretty healthy. So I used that remedy for a long time, and I've recommended it to other women that need an aromatase inhibitor, and it has been very effective. So,
So
um,
maybe just to define a few things to help people who are maybe new to these topics. From what I recall, aromatizing is when you take another hormone. If your body takes one hormone, it is converted with an enzyme in the body and converts to estrogen as a common one. Is that correct?
Yes, and, their goal is for you not to build negative estrogen, you know, xenoestrogens are a big problem for people with estrogen-based cancers
Mhm.
because they bind to the estrogen receptors, and they don't let, estradiol, which is a healthy estrogen, bind, and so you end up with too high of harmful estrogens, and, aromatase inhibitors help block estrogen. But the cool thing about like an aromatase inhibitor like Oriental Plain is that it has been researched in the fact that it will block harmful estrogen, but it
Mm.
will not block healthy estrogen.
That's
So,
terrific.
plant intelligence, right?
Yes, that's
Uh, you
amazing.
know, so it makes me smile from ear to ear. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but these remedies can have a lot of phytohormones depending on the remedy. Again, full amino acid profiles, both essential and non-essential, has things called auxins, which are uh, they're they're stimulating hormones. They stimulate growth, and they're found in the buds of the plants.
Mm.
And one of the things that they do is they promote healthy cell division, and they promote healthy RNA production. And you don't want those. I think a thing that they're calling them these days are zombie cells, right? Cells that are just not productive, and they need to be excreted out of the body. And so it helps with that. And then they have cytokines, which help with cell division and healthy cell division, both non-immune and immune cells. And that's super important. Um, and it can increase or decrease immune activity, depending on the plant and depending what it's for. Like mature plant medicine, they have an affinity towards certain systems in the body, and they detox them quite well, which is in the world of phytoembryonic therapy and homeopathy, it's called drainage. You drain the organ, you help get rid of the toxins. It's kind of like throwing out the organ's toxic bucket, you know. Um, Lots of enzymes that help with, like, they almost all of them support the microbiome, um, which is wonderful. They're really high in flavonoids, which flavonoids is an antioxidant like quercetin. Quercetin is responsible for so much wonderful things in the body. Almost all of these remedies have quercetin in them. They're high in quercetin. They help with liver detoxification, definitely help with free radical production, to bring down free radical production and to support healthy cell oxidation, which is very important for longevity and aging. And then a special thing that they have is a plant hormone that's called a gibberellins, and that is pronounced, spelled Gibberellins, gibberellins, and they're found in the buds of the flowers, the germinating seeds, and the young tissues. And it's those are the components in the stem cells that uh, like super important because they're responsible for the detoxification and removing toxic substances, especially from the extracellular matrix and the cell structures and the cell themselves. One of these things that these plant stems are excellent at that is relevant to our lives right now is some of them detox uh, environmental components, environmental toxicities that are hard to get out of the body. Um, they're working on them with right now with forever chemicals, right? That they may not be forever in the presence of these stem cells. And I can go through a little bit of what my favorite environmental ones are, like things that detox aluminum, which is a big problem for people because there's so much aluminum in our environment, mercury, lead, cadmium. Um, they do a really good job of that. And and I love that because sometimes it's hard to find things to help really effectively get rid of heavy metals. And they also have stuff called, I'm going to hammer this one, jasmunatus, which is, it just looks like jasminates, but they're pronounced a little differently. They are acids that deal with stress hormones and immune hormones um, that increased like acquired immunity and immunity resistance. So it's interesting. They help definitely with pathogenic attacks on the body. And they decrease allergies, and almost all of the remedies that I've researched and that I've worked with, which is not the same in mature plant medicine a lot of the times, they're all autoimmune friendly.
Mm.
So they work with autoimmune, and they can help get rid of autoimmune, and they can help prevent autoimmune, which that is another thing that kind of brought me to this area of uh, of medicine, of herbal medicine. And I like to mix. I you know like I will mix. I do like what I call a combination. I'll mix hawthorn with the stem cell, the mature plant. berry and the leaf and flower and the flower essence together, and I make this combination of it, and it is
Wow.
just beautiful and so well rounded in its effects on the heart and on also they have, like a lot of flower medicines, they have that flower essence effect where they affect the emotional being, and they definitely affect a lot of these remedies affect the emotional being.
That's
um
Can I ask a few questions here to
yeah,
get yeah,
absolutely.
wonderful. So when might you choose a phytoembryonic therapy over, let's say, a tincture for one of your clients?
Well, there's one remedy that is very apparent that the phytoembryonic is far superior to the full plant medicine. That's horsetail.
Mm.
One of the reasons is because horsetail tends to get quite toxic as it matures. Um, and the phytoembryonic, which is made from the tissues about that big, little tiny babies, right?
Mm.
Um, it doesn't have that toxicity, and it also doesn't bring down thiamine. So you can get thiamine deficiency when using horsetail for a long period of time, and
Mm.
it doesn't do that. It doesn't deplete it in the body like the mature plant medicine. So definitely, I use a lot of horsetail for like CCL tears, different types of tension in the tendons and ligaments, uh, incontinence. It's a big incontinence remedy, both in animals and people. It um, God, I mean, I've used that remedy in the full plant form many times, but when I started using the uh, embryonic, it kind of really opened up because it's great for bone loss in the mouth.
Mm.
Um, it stimulates collagen. It helps repair damaged cartilage, which is hard to do. There's a couple of the remedies that help. One of my favorites too, which I'll tell you about in a little bit, but helps repair damaged cartilage. It's good for hairline fractures, so you can mix it with like bone set.
Mm.
Uh, and I mean, I love it for tooth decay, swishing it in the mouth. Hair loss in people works really well. Any connective tissue condition, I find that it works well with, and UTIs.
I wasn't aware that horsetail made in the traditional fashion can be toxic. What is it about it that can become toxic?
I'm not positive how it will deplete thiamine. I don't know the mechanism on that,
Oh, that's what
but
you mean by toxicity, is that it depletes
oh, you
the
mean the environmental? Yes.
yeah.
So, horsetail can pull heavy metals like kale, hemp. Hemp's
Mm.
another one. They have a stem cell of cannabis as well, and it's beautiful. But hemp, all the super accumulators, and horsetail is one of them. So
Okay.
as it matures, it pulls out what's in the soil. And unfortunately, when we had pristine soils, this wasn't a problem,
Mhm.
right? And it's a problem for a lot of plants now that tend to have a pulling nature, um, because our soils are not well. And like, especially, horsetail loves to grow alongside the road, any, like, we have a pond, I mean, a creek, not a pond, a creek that runs behind our house and it ends up at the road. And a lot of the horsetail grows right over by the near the road. And also I will see people taking horsetail from those sections, and what I really want to do and just say, don't do that.
Mhm.
That's not clean soil. So it doesn't have the opportunity to draw up those environmental pollutants into as it does when it matures. So you're
Mm.
using the embryonic form, and I just love it. So
Wonderful.
I really do.
For those who don't know what spagyrics is, how would you describe that formulation or that method?
I'm just going to give you, it's a complicated alchemical process. However, just the short and skinny is that it basically, a normal tincture, you're just macerating the plant material, you're squeezing out the mark, which is either the alcohol or glycerin or a blend of both, right? And you're pouring it into a bottle and you're using it as a tincture. Well, a spagyric tincture is going to take that mark. It's going to be put through an extraction process of heat, fire, and it's going to burn it down to its plant salts. And then this is very basic. And then you are going to take those salts and put them back into um, the the solution so that you have a it's basically a full spectrum tincture that has the mineral salts put back into it. That's basically the spagyric method. And it's
Mm.
much more complicated than that.
Yeah,
But
well, great
that's the
summary.
tiny that's the tiny summary that a lot of people can understand.
That's terrific. We'll have to clip that one. That's terrific. So when you talked about these phytoembryonic remedies are made by water extraction, glycerin, and alcohol. Are all three methods always used, or depends on the?
Um, some some companies don't use the water.
Hmm.
Um, and 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 some remedies don't require the water, but most of them do. It's water, glycerin, and alcohol. Um, I have never seen anyone that doesn't use the alcohol or the glycerin. So it's just the water. But most of them are made with water, alcohol, and glycerin.
And then they're combined, like they're formulated separately and then
Yes.
combined.
So when I made the bud tincture of clematis that I used for we talked about this
Mhm.
a couple that couldn't get pregnant. The husband, he was a little too warm, and uh he had bad morphology of his sperm. They just weren't fitting in. And I made a bud tincture of clematis uh specifically because um it was intuitive medicine.
Mm,
Okay. So I kept looking at that bud, right? And we were having some plant communication going on there. But I
mm,
also knew that clematis can be quite toxic.
mm,
And this was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, because they went on to have another child, uh, naturally. And, I made a 50% glycerin, 25% alcohol, and 25% water,
mm.
and I let it macerate for, I think about 5 to 6 weeks. And then I just had him take drop doses of it, and it worked so well. I told him, because I don't know about the remedy, and I know that it can cause nausea and vomiting, and clematis can be, again, a little toxic. Um, uh, he didn't have any nausea, no vomiting. I just said, if you feel nauseous, then scale back down on the dose. And he only took, like, I think 3 to 4 drops a couple times a day, and then worked on his heat, and he did really well. So,
Do you mean constitutionally he was hot?
yes, constitutionally, he was warm. Yeah,
Okay.
hot. Yeah, definitely. He was eating too much. He's Hispanic, and he was eating way too much traditional food, um, and way too much spice. And he
Mm,
was just heating himself up. I said, "No more ghost pepper. Um,
mhm,
we got to bring this down." You know, can't eat the ghost pepper when you're trying to cool yourself off. So,
mm,
yeah, and um, he did really well. But you know, I did that recently. I made one out of, and I'm excited to use this one out of yellow pond lily,
mm,
the flower, and I chopped it up, and I love the flower essence of yellow pond lily. It's great for polycystic ovarian syndrome. I have a family member that's got a pretty bad ovarian cyst, which we're using phytoembryonics on, and some flower essence, and also we're going to try her on just like a couple drops of the yellow pond lily uh, phytoembryonic, not spagyric, but just a regular
mhm.
phyto.
Neat. So would you say the clematis was more specifically, was it specifically for the morphology of the sperm, or it was specifically in combination with the heat?
It was specifically for the morphology of the sperm.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's a big deal, especially these days.
Yeah, it was specifically for the morphology of the sperm. And for those of you that believe in intuitive herbal medicine, like myself, I definitely had a conversation with that plant. Uh,
Mhm,
and I didn't realize it at first. I had to walk past it every time I went out my front door. And
mm,
it just kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me and bugging me. And it was a family member that couldn't get pregnant.
mm,
And kept bugging me, and I was like, "Oh my god." the doctrine of signatures was right. It was all over it. And then, I looked it up and I was like, I've only used the flower essence of clematis. So I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, you look like baby sperms. You remind me of the front end of a sperm. And so I gave it a try and I did some research on clematis and I made a phytoembryonic out of it because most of the time it brings down the toxicity considerably.
Is this kind of what you mean by it looks like the front end of the sperm?
Yeah, more the little green one on the top.
Little green one.
Yeah, well, that's what I made it out of. Yeah, the more mature ones look more like sperm, but I got them when they were tiny.
Mm-hmm.
It was a white clematis. So, I don't, and again, I don't know if color has anything to do with it, but
Yeah,
it was a white clematis outside my front door.
that's
So,
so neat.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It's totally anecdotal and that's fine with me. I was just super excited about it. And, but I did want to tell you like some other benefits of phytoembryonics and kind of some
Yeah.
differences between mature plant medicine and
Yeah,
phytoembryonics. So,
please do. That sounds great.
yeah, I'm going to run through it. I know we've got time crunches, but one thing that they do is they help with uh, cell death regulation and cellular renewal. And we talked about that, connective tissues, glandular functioning, immune function, and they modulate like mushrooms. They modulate the immune system. They give the immune system what it needs. That's why they're super easy on autoimmune disease. And they lengthen telomeres. So what some of the research that had been done on them is longevity medicine, and they lengthen telomeres. And that's really important because as we age, telomeres get shorter and shorter. And good telomeres are responsible for healthy cell division. And you want to lengthen your telomeres and you want your DNA replications um, to increase, not decrease. Because
Yeah.
when they decrease, this leads to, to cell death, to eventually to our demise as well. So they lengthen telomeres. They help with overall detoxification. They excel in that one.
For those who are not familiar with telomeres, I had a great description is that on your DNA, and I suppose it would be the RNA technically also, they're like, the little end caps, I forget what they're called, on your shoelaces, that little plastic part that kind of holds it together so it doesn't fray. The telomeres are like that, and they can decrease with exposure to toxins and so forth. And you want to keep them lengthy so that your DNA doesn't randomly unravel, when we're exposed to these environmental toxins in particular. And so when Rita's talking about you want to keep them healthy and even lengthen them, which is possible, it is directly related to your lifespan, that your cells then are replicating appropriately and not going into senescence or actually becoming it helps prevent that they don't become cancerous as well.
Yes.
Does that sound right to you?
Yes. I love that. I love the thing on the little cap at the end of the shoelace. That's a great explanation because telomeres can get very complicated. And I don't know if I still understand them exactly, but that's a great analogy.
Yeah, I like that one. I didn't come up with it, but I like it.
I like it. A couple other things that they do is they help with somatic cell proliferation. Hello, Rita. That's really crucial for growth, for cellular growth and repairing tissues and like getting your bodily functions to start working again properly. And then they help with collagen and elastin, which of course is great for aging and tissue renewal. And they can, like I said before, they contain lots of RNA. And there's some studies going on using these remedies for epigenetic polymorphisms, which means that, the DNA is not expressing the way it in a healthy way.
It makes sense why it would help with the sperm morphology, because that's exactly what's happening there.
Yes. So the last time I heard, they were 10 for 10, like 10 positive results out of 10 studies for turning off different polymorphisms. I don't know all the details yet, but the research is beyond what they ever expected. And one of the stem cells that I don't use a lot of and I'm starting to explore is hops. And hops, I guess, is doing a lot of really great things in epigenetics. So fun. So that's really fun in future use of, I would guess, kind of say the future of validating plant medicine. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have these stem cell remedies that here we go, they're literally turning off DNA, basically DNA failures, right? They're turning that frown upside down. So I like that. But like I said, they really help with environmental pollutants, which I can talk about in a second, like getting rid of xenobiotics, xenoestrogens, which are so harmful to the hormone system, really harmful to women and their reproductive system because they're ingested, inhaled, and absorbed, right? Through so many things that we do in our convenient lifestyle. And they decrease antigens. So that, in dogs, it's food sensitivities, but people have lots of food sensitivities, right? And they decrease the amount of antigens that your body is making because they work at modulating the immune system so that the immune system isn't hyperactive. And lots of the remedies do that too. So I love that. I talked about they increase cellular voltage because they give off negative ions. So we want a lot of negative ions in our life because our life is filled with positive ions, which kind of messes with the head because you'd think that positive ions would be the good guys, but they're not. We want negative ions to combat all of those toxins in our world. Here's the differences between mature plant medicine and some of them. I mean, not all plant medicine has what I just discussed, but here's some like super differences. Embryonics are super high in antioxidants, much more than their mature plant friends. They reduce hydrogen peroxide and ammonia production, which too much of that, especially in the gut with ammonia, can really mess with liver detoxification pathways. So we don't want to do that. They increase glutathione, and a lot of them are high in what's called superoxidase dismutase, which is abbreviated as SOD. And SOD helps protect cells from damage, and it improves liver function. And we all need to improve organ function. And I'm sure the high SOD content also is what helps with the telomeres, right? Not positive, but I'm going to take a guess.
At least helps prevent the damage from happening. The glutathione being a major antioxidant, and of course superoxide dismutase also being a super antioxidant, at least helping to protect the body. And I've heard they're also, at least the glutathione is very healing and protective. Your body actually makes it, but when it's taxed, and especially your liver is taxed by all those environmental pollutants, like you mentioned, it's not going to be able to make as much of it naturally.
No, and for women, the biggest thing to understand about glutathione is that birth control messes with glutathione production and basically that pathway in the liver. And so if you're on birth control for a long time, some of your detoxification pathways can shut down. So and you're not getting rid of toxins like you should. And
Yeah.
then things start to accumulate and the rest of the story.
Yeah.
So and then I did mention autoimmune friendly and deterrent. Autoimmune disease comes from like DNA breaks, like when you have genetic damage and those polymorphisms, like we were talking about, which are, different variations of like DNA sequences. Okay. And basically that affect genetic expression. And these plant stem cells help stimulate and repair DNA and help repair RNA. And that RNA helps create healthy mitochondria. And mitochondria are pretty much responsible for supporting healthy cells in general and our metabolic function, which a lot of people have low metabolic function right now because of diet and environmental toxins.
Right.
So those are the main differences.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
i.e. energy. So if you're low on energy, your mitochondria need help. And you
yes,
can unburden the load. You can take off some of the load off of your cells and
yes.
detoxify your body, get overall get healthier, sounds
Yeah,
like.
and speaking of detoxification, um, environmental, so just a couple like that affect all of us,
Yeah.
okay? So the xenoestrogens, huge. There's a couple remedies. One's made from caraway. The other one is black currant. There's a whole bunch that do the xenoestrogens. The oriental plain. Um, I'm thinking about Judas tree, um, the buds of the flowers. Those work on xenobiotics. They also work on pharmaceutical drugs and different types of pollutants. But like the ones that I love is beech, which is the Fagus sylvatica. The beech buds work on mercury. Mountain pine, which is one of my favorite remedies, works on mercury. Bilberry, bilberry, such a wonderful phytoembryonic. It gets rid of lead and aluminum.
Mm.
And aluminum, it's great for detoxing aluminum, and that is so important. Um, it also works with cadmium. And then like black poplar buds. I'm having a hard time talking today. I'm sorry. Um, Black poplar buds, uh, it's buds of the leaves. That helps with chlorine, different types of VOCs, polyvinyl chloride. It's a heavy metal chelator, and it helps this one pollutant that is just nasty. It's called 1,4-dioxane. It's a product of chlorine, and it is hard to get out of the body. It helps get it out of the body, and it also helps with nitrates. So black poplar buds do really well, and that remedy is definitely a detoxification remedy.
Mm.
Um, Things that are also very uh, pertinent right now, dandelion, the rootlets help detoxify pharmaceuticals and vaccines, and they also help reduce the side effects of if you have to get vaccinated. Um, Dogwood, um, dogwood does it was cleaning solvents, yeah, and fire retardants, which is a huge deal inside our homes. Heavy metal, radiation, pesticides, and food additives. Dogwood is really good for that. And the interesting thing is a lot of the environmental pollutants I just talked about are really hard on the cardiac muscle, and
Mm.
it's a cardiac remedy. So yeah, fire retardants are really hard on the cardiac muscle in general. And then one of my favorite plants or roots and plants is elecampane, and they have a phytoembryonic made with the rootlets. And I love this one for people that consume spirulina and chlorella because it both of those wonderful supplements can have different cyanobacteria toxins in it, the mycotoxins, and it can help protect the body against mycotoxins and detox different cyanobacteria toxins. So whenever I take chlorella every now and then when I'm sensitive to gluten, and if I get gluten, um, I take chlorella and it helps immensely. But when I
Mm.
take chlorella, I take that phytoembryonic along with it. Um,
So even though the chlorella and spirulina have their own health benefits, there are also some side not so beneficial components
yeah,
of
they're called microcysteines,
microcysteines.
and a lot of companies don't test for them,
Mhm.
and they can lead to like dementia and Alzheimer's and different types of things they build up in the body. And the elecampane root has been proven to help remove those microcysteines and protect the body against them, which is just phenomenal. Um,
Interesting.
and then let me think. I know we're pressed for time. What is another? Oh, lead. Lead is another one. So grapevine buds, uh, Vitis vinifera. I think it's the bud of the leaf of the grapevine. It's really great for copper, storage disease, lead, radiation. It helps kind of negate the effects of strychnine. And I'm not going to try not to butcher this, Tara. Organochlorines.
That sounds right.
Did I
And by
do
the
good?
way, I'm not short on time. So if
Oh, you're
we're
not? Okay, I
no,
thought you were short on time.
nope.
I was like, we only have 8 minutes.
No, I was just short on time arriving
Oh, okay.
today.
Sorry.
So if we
Sorry.
go a bit over that, I'm totally good with that. I have
Okay.
a feeling that we'll have some here comments and questions that we may get to as well.
And then another one that I love that you would like, that I wouldn't think of it, but here it is eyebright buds. Really great. I like to mix it with mullein leaf, but it works with smoky atmospheres, forest fires. It works so well. And people who smoke, people who have secondhand smoke like around them, people who are around a lot of car exhaust fumes, um, people who are sensitive to chemical sprays. It helps so much for the allergic reactions to that sensitivity in the body, where you have a hard time being around chemical exposure.
Mhm.
Um, and some people are worse than others. It really helps the body not react and to clear. So that's a really good one. And then another pollutant in our world is BPA. Uh, BPA horse chestnut buds. It's the bud of the leaf. Really great at detoxifying plastic. All of those plastic hardening chemicals. Um, BPA, BHT. There's another BPA. It's the BPA alternative, which isn't hardly any better than the BPA. Horse chestnut bud is good for that. And then mold.
Mm.
Mold. I love propolis for mold, but there is one called lemon tree, and it's made from the internal embryonic bark, so the inside, and it's great for mold. It's a really great detoxifier in general, but it's really good for mold. And having solutions for mold is really important for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I love that one. And we can talk a little bit about my favorite remedies. I love to talk about certain ones that I use a lot of.
Yeah, please do. That was one of my questions. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
So there's, like I said, there's close to 60 remedies. So there's a lot.
Yeah.
But some of the ones that I love a lot for dogs and people, one of them is one of my favorites, which, we tend to akin plants that we find useful for ourselves, right? Sometimes, like, oh, I love that plant and this is why it changed my life, right?
Mhm.
So mountain pine, Pinus montana buds, it changed my life. I have a L4, L5 injury that really kept me from being in my body and hiking and jumping and skipping, and I don't run, but walking fast, and just kind of keeping that in the back of your mind going, oh, don't do that, something might happen, right? You don't want to fall, something might happen. Or like, you get up and you're like, gee. And you don't want to pick that up, you don't want to do all this stuff because of, well, I started taking mountain pine, and I took it every day. I still take it, but not every day, but I still take it. It's an awesome anti-inflammatory. It can replace um, ibuprofen, and it also that everyday use of ibuprofen. Maybe not ibuprofen after you just got your tooth extracted, but like the everyday use of ibuprofen to keep pain away. Because I definitely think that it works better when you get ahead of pain, to keep the pain from coming. But the pain also gives us, direction on what we need to heal. And this definitely healed my back. I am totally in my body. In fact, I have fallen 3 times by accident in the last month. I tripped in a hole, I caught my foot on a stair, and I slipped in my dog's dog food just recently, like 3 days ago. And before I would, which is gross, but it's true. Um, someone picked up the bowl and I was done. I was down. And I mean, I went all 3 of them. I went down like a ton of bricks. And before I would have just been like, "Oh God," and I just knew I didn't hurt myself. Anytime I did not hurt myself, which in my life and in my head, it's monumental. So it's wonderful. And then another short little tidbit about mountain pine is my mom. She is 94 years old. She got in a car accident and she broke her leg, her ankle in 3 places. Um, and they pinned it back together, but her foot started getting super red and the circulation was really poor and it had a lot of pain in it and it was making her life miserable. She could only wear like an open-toed shoe. And my mother's very forceful, like she has a force, and she was upset about it. And the doctor basically told her, "You're not a candidate for surgery and there's nothing we can do for you." And you're not, because of her kidney function, she's not a candidate for painkillers either. So you're just going to have to live with it. And it would keep her up at night. So I started giving her just 4 drops of mountain pine, um, based on what it does in the body, but 4 drops of mountain pine twice daily. And I said, just take it as you need it at night. Well, in the first couple of weeks, she took probably 3 drops a few times a night under her tongue. And then now she just takes it at night. But the redness is gone. The pain is gone. She's walking so much better and she's wearing all of her favorite shoes, and she's a clothes junkie and shoes are extremely important to her. And she's not wearing sandals anymore. She's wearing closed-toed shoes. And I've shared this with some dog people when I was talking about mountain pine before. And I mean, it's phenomenal. And she's so happy, right? The doctor doesn't care what she's doing and doesn't want to know, of course. He doesn't want to know. She went in there just elated. But it doesn't mess with her kidney function. It actually helps improve it. It doesn't mess with her pharmaceuticals she's using for her heart. And it's just really rocking her world like it has mine. So mountain pine's just one of my favorite remedies because, pain is real sometimes and it's great for pain. But what it does is it helps remineralize like bone tissue, and it helps with tendons and ligaments. It helps repair cartilage. It's a COX-1 and COX-2 inhibitor, um, and I think that it helps soften, and it's definitely a really great antihistamine and heavy metal chelator. So you can use it with, like, yeast, infections, because they're bound to heavy metals. Yeast is very bound to mercury, so I use it in my, mercury detoxification. I use it in my heavy metal detoxification. I also use it with beech, and things like Podiarco for, yeast infections. I really like echinacea leaf and flower, as well. Um, so, yeah, just absolutely love mountain pine. It makes me happy. So, a lot of tree medicines in these remedies too. Just tons of trees like silver fir and white birch, silver birch, different types of sequoia. There's a sequoia remedy for the prostate, that they make out of the just the young, um, little, when the cone is starting to form. They make it out of that. It's beautiful. My next remedy that I love is black currant. It's Ribes nigrum. It's made out of the buds, of the plant, of the leaf, and it's a natural cortisone. So I use it a lot with dogs. It's a little stimulating, so you kind of use it in the morning or in the early evening, but not in the late evening because it might keep you up. But like with humans, um, just a few things that it does. It helps with ear, nose, and throat conditions. It helps with high blood pressure, high uric acid. A lot of the remedies help with high uric acid. Um, Histamine levels. It improves blood flow around the optic nerve, so you can use it with eyebright and bilberry. Uh, Inflamed mucous membranes, really excels at that. Low metabolism, low pituitary function, um, mast cell activation syndrome. It helps with night vision, so it does have an affinity towards the eyes. Definitely has an affinity towards the immune system, but it does stimulate the kidneys and adrenal glands. It helps the body deal with stress. You don't want to use too much of it. Like I usually only recommend starting at using it like once a day and then kind of moving maybe to twice a day, but never 3 times because I find that it's too stimulating. But like with people, it's great for addiction. Really wonderful for symptoms of ADHD because it's like, like Adderall, right? It's a stimulant. But for people that have true ADHD or ADD, it calms them down. It has that paradoxical opposite effect, and it really helps with ADD. Um, Autoimmune disease, it's wonderful for that. Carpal tunnel, I like to mix it with Solomon seal. Chronic fatigue syndrome, really dark circles under the eyes for the adrenals. Let me think about other human stuff. I talked about night vision. It can help with depression because it's an MAOI inhibitor. Um, Lots of the remedies are good for MS. Multiple sclerosis is on the findings for a lot of them. It helps with polycystic ovarian syndrome. Um, oh, and sun allergy. That's a specific. I've had it with a kid with sun allergy, and then a woman with sun allergy, and then a dog, and it happened to be a hairless dog. So there's that. Um, it works really well for sun allergy, and sun allergy can be a big problem for people that have it. Not many people have it, but when they do, it makes them miserable. Um, do you want me to go on with my favorite remedies?
Yeah,
Or do you have
let's go to a quarter after.
okay.
Your top, I don't know, we might get to top 5 list.
Yeah. I'll try to make it quick. I'll just stick to humans. Um, Bramble. So blackberry. They use the young tissues, the little tiny itsy bitsies. Uh, Bramble is so awesome as a phytoembryonic. It works for allergies. It works for like spondylitis and spondylosis. So like arthritic conditions. It mixes really well with mountain pine. It mixes well with Solomon seal. It's great for food sensitivities, disc disease, wonderful for diarrhea, chronic diarrhea, joint pain. It definitely has an affinity towards large intestine and the kidneys. Um, Great for mouth inflammation as a rinse, like stomatitis. Protein in the urine. It helps protect DNA. It's definitely uh, one of those remedies, and helps with upper respiratory infections. So, um, any type of spinal condition, and it really helps reform cartilage, and that's one of the things that it it kind of excels at, and that's why I like mixing it with mountain pine. So love it. Um, a couple of highlights for people with bramble is that it's really good at fibromyalgia. It's a hemorrhoid remedy because it's astringent. Um, any type of lung obstruction disease. Um, Raynaud syndrome, when you get the blue kind of tint to your hands, and it's a great topical for herpes. So love bramble. Um, Bilberry. They use the young shoots and some of the little immature fruits. Uh, Love this remedy for so many things. The eye circulation is one of them. Fungal infections, food sensitivities, glaucoma, cataracts. Works really well with glaucoma and cataracts and like DNA damage in the eye. It also helps with dry eye, which a lot of people have some problems with. Um, IBD, IBS, hyperpigmentation in humans. It helps with appetite, at regulating appetite. I'm just thinking about anything that's super high in um, herpes. It's a wonderful herpes remedy. Herpes simplex and genital herpes definitely helps with that, even as a topical. Macular degeneration, wet or dry, and osteoporosis. Oh, and speaking of the herpes, it helps with ocular herpes too, which I did not know was a thing until I had a client with it. So, um, Now this remedy's up there with mountain pine. It's up there. It didn't change my life, but it has changed the life of lots of dogs and people. It's fig. So fig buds. Ficus carica. Fig is really wonderful because it has a full array of B vitamins, vitamin C and E, and lots of macro minerals and trace minerals and all of the amino acids. It is wonderful for the gut-brain axis. It helps feed the microbiome. It helps with food sensitivities, reactions in the gut, gut inflammation, feelings of obsessive compulsive disorder, being obsessed, having those circular thoughts, you know, like homeopathic arsenicum can help with circular thoughts. This one is so good at it. Shutting that brain off to help you fall asleep. It's really wonderful for just normalizing the digestive fluids in the gastrointestinal tract. It's great for fight or flight. People that are just in sympathetic excess, they have a hard time shutting it off. It helps with addiction. People who are addicted to their phones, they just don't want to put things down. People with FOMO, that fear of missing out, that can't be present because they feel like something else is going on that they're going to miss out on, and their whole lives are going to come to an end, right? And that's part of that obsessive thinking that goes on. Really wonderful for that. I absolutely love this remedy for sympathetic excess stress and stress in the gut. It's definitely, I think, a key indication is stress in the gut and the mind. So love fig. Love, love, love it. And it's great for acid reflux. We talked about horsetail. We talked about oriental plane tree for different types of, like oriental plane is good for as aromatase inhibitor, but it's also good for endometriosis. And it regulates the estrogenic receptors, and we really love that. It keeps that bad estrogen out of the way. It's wonderful for estrogen dominance, which is so hard for so many women and causes so many problems. Wonderful for PMS, like ovarian cysts, ovarian-induced, not ovarian, hormone-induced acne, things like that. So we love that for women. Another remedy I love for, just because it replaces an endangered remedy, which is mountain elm. You can use it in lieu of slippery elm. And it's a great liquid remedy. It's made from the leaf buds. It allows the plant to reproduce. It's not harmed. You don't have to use the bark. It's a moisturizing, cooling remedy, high in mucilage, wonderful for blood sugar, high blood sugar, celiac, healing the gut. You can use it in combination with fig. Chronic constipation, dementia. It helps lubricate, the things where, fats and oils are depleted. It helps with a lot of those types of things. That's going to be IBS, IBD, Crohn's disease. They're doing some work with it with Parkinson's disease, which I find fascinating. It's not really my shtick, but I do find it fascinating. Some people I know have been affected by that. But any like ulcers, ulcerative colitis, very disrupting things like that that go on in the guts. I really love this remedy because, again, it keeps us from using slippery elm bark. And let me think. Oh, no, I think I talked about that one. The bud of the grape. I think I did. Oh,
You
I think
mentioned
it was in chat.
grapevine. You did mention grapevine.
Yeah, that one's really good for candida overgrowth, which is a big problem, like inflammation in the gut. It helps protect the heart. It helps with hip and knee pain, which humans have a lot of issues with. Low bile. It helps the gallbladder and the liver. It helps the musculoskeletal system. It has an affinity towards the kidneys. That one's a really good one because it's a polycrest, right? It's a polycrest for organ health. Small joints can help with ulcers and warts. The liver causing, pushing out to the skin, causing different types of skin tags and growths. But so that's another one I love.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, it is so interesting, the commonalities among the, standard tinctures, but it seems like they really have, a whole realm of their own. Now you specialize in with dogs and humans, but it sounds like there's a lot of potential here when you're talking about helping clean out the proteins, the kidneys for cats. What is such a common ailment among cats as they get older is kidney disease.
Yes. Yes, you can use salicylic acid is one of the issues that a lot of, like, there's a lovely willow remedy that we have to watch out for kitties, but if it's just, 1 to 2 drops, you're usually fine. You don't need to use a lot of these remedies, unless you're really trying to push the body to react. Uh, the kitties do really well on, there's a wonderful remedy made from nettle, nettle bud. It's made from the bud of the flowers. So tedious work, very tedious, tedious work.
The flowers are already tiny.
So tiny. It's made from the bud of the flowers. It's very tedious work. And that one works really well for kitties, but one of the biggest things that can help with kitties is just not feed dry food. I'm a big advocate of feeding cats raw food, a more species appropriate diet, because they're obligate carnivores and we feed them out of convenience. And cats, not saying cats don't love dry food, because some of them absolutely love it because that's what they grew up with. So it's hard to get a cat. It takes a while to get a cat to start eating the way it should. But it really dries out their kidneys, and kidney dryness is one of the biggest things for cats. But between kidney disease and hyperthyroid, those are the two things that cats really suffer from.
I had my previous kitty, she had hyperthyroid, well, and then later kidney disease also. And I wish I had known all this earlier, because definitely I got a kitten last year. So she's still a kitten, but she's full grown now, right? And she's been eating wet and raw food. And so just putting into practice, right, what I learned prior. But my previous cat, I was able to, when she was diagnosed hyperthyroid, they gave me the standard procedures, right? You can have her irradiated, you can have her she can take medication every day. And I'm like, I can't do that to my cat. So I was like, I know a few things about herbalism. I don't know if at the time, and this was several years ago, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to kill my cat, because I know their systems are very, very particular, and I didn't know who to go to at the time. But I did give her remedies like what you would give humans, and it was just teeny tiny amount. And her yowling, she stopped yowling at night and during the day, which was fabulous, because that's apparently really common when they get hyperthyroid. They meow and meow, or it's called yowling.
Yeah.
And it would keep us up all night. So that stopped. She stopped losing weight. She was losing, at the point that I took her to the vet, she lost a pound within a week. And she stabilized after that. She lived, was it 2 or 3 years longer after that point?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. So when I can learn more remedies that I can use with cats, hopefully we don't get to that point, right? But it's good to have a few tools in the toolkit.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, no, kitties are, I love kitties. I have 2 kitties and I am in love with them. So
They're
I've tried to
wonderful.
do it. I'm definitely a crazy cat and dog lady.
So, before we wrap up, are there any closing thoughts that you would think would kind of help put a bow on this before I share with people your website? And actually, you have a course on this, because obviously there's a lot to learn.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that, closing, it is really important to have different tools in your toolbox, and different parts of plants provide different expression. Like I said, I love to mix these plants with mature plant medicines in many ways, and experiment with them and have fun with them, and learn from them. But what I love these remedies for is what is ailing people like pretty hard right now is get detoxification and environmental damage. And those are the things that I love about these remedies, not to mention they are sustainable. They don't decimate plant populations, which, you know, as an herbalist is a big factor for a lot of things. We've had to pivot with a lot of medicine that we've normally used that is now, you know, on a different, like plants, United Plant Savers, endangered list or critical list. And this type of extraction and methodology doesn't allow, does allow for the plant to go on and reproduce and mature and finish out its life cycle.
It's so cool. Jessica says in the chat here, Rita, thank you for always sharing so much great information. It's clear that you're a fount of information. I can only imagine what this course contains. If in not even an hour and a half, you've shared so much. So absolutely incredible. I'm eager. I feel like I've learned so much, but I can tell that there's like so much more to learn.
Yeah, and the course itself is it's a canine course, but I give all the pertinent human indications, and it has a full materia medica of about, I think, about 56 of the remedies, and that includes like all the known constituents of them, if they have amino acids, what type of phytoembryonic constituents it has, what it's good for, what it detoxes. And another thing I didn't say about these remedies is that a lot of them will target specific pathogens that are really hard to eradicate, like H. pylori and things like that. That they've been studied for specific pathogens. And what I love about that is that plants are intelligent. You know, so many of them are, not all of them. Some of them will hurt the microbiome, but some plants are very intelligent where they leave other things alone, you know, that are important, and they target different types of bacteria. I've used them in pretty bad UTIs that have been antibiotic resistant.
Wow.
In one, healing the microbiome, but two, getting that bacteria to balance out that won't go away.
I bet there's something for SIBO.
Oh, absolutely. That's
Wow.
another conversation, but I love talking about SIBO.
That is so cool. Rita, we have some more conversations to have, that's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, absolutely. Your website is canineherbalism.com, and it'll pretty easily find the courses in the menu there, and that's where you'll find the canine phytoembryonic therapy. But like Rita said, she does have indications for humans in there as well. So I can just imagine it's chock full of information.
It is.
Rita, thank you again so much for joining us
You're
today.
welcome.
I don't know what the next topic is going to be. We'll find something for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.